I this lecture will look at different types of solutions. What is osmosis, what is diffusion, and also we will learn about some differences about whether the differences exist between the osmosis and diffusion, and some terms related to plant water relations like osmotic ratio, potential, diffusion ratio, deficit. All these are like covered in this lecture. So please tune into the lecture till the end. Okay. Let's start with the lecture. So what is hypotonic solution? Hypo means less, tonic means strength. So if the solute concentration is less compared to the water molecules, then it is called as hypotonic solution. And the cell condition will be turgid. Why? Because more amount of the water is getting absorbed from outside environment to the inner cell environment. Okay. Next is hypertonic solution. This is very important. You should understand this. Okay, so if the solute concentration is more when compared to the water molecule, so if the solute molecules are more when compared to the solid molecule, then it is called as a hypotonic solution. Here the solute concentration is more when compared to that of the solvent concentration. And the cell will be in the plasmolysed condition. Okay, so you can see here that there is using a water from the cell. So water is going out of the cell, and you can see this. There is a shrinkage of the protoplasm because of the exit of the water from the cell environment to the external environment. So this kind of cell is called as plasmolysed cell, and condition is called as a hypotonic. Solution is called as a hypotonic solution. So in case of isotonic solution, iso means same, tonic means strength, means the solution have same strength. So here the solute and solvent concentrations of the molecules are same, okay, and as you can see here, the cell will be in the flaccid condition in case of the isotonic solution. Cell will be in the flaccid conditions. Why? Because there will be more amount of there will be same amount of the water is coming out, and also the same amount of the water is coming out and same amount of water is coming in, and the same amount of the water is coming out. Okay. This is called as flaccid condition. Okay. Let's see how the plasmolysis. What is plasmolysis? So now we can define plasmolysis as shrinkage of the protoplasm. Is called as a plasmolysis. You can differentiate with this is a normal cell and this is an incipient plasmolysis. Here just the plasmolysis has begun. That is, you can see here there is a shrinkage of the protoplasm, and it has started moving towards inside, and you can see the space here. So this condition is called as incipient plasmolysis. Whereas in case of evident plasmolysis, you can clearly make out that the cell has the cell has so the cell membrane it has been shrunken, okay, and more amount of the water is going out of the cell, and this is a final stage of the plasmolysis. From the normal cell to the final stage of the cell, you can clearly make out how there is a shrinkage of the protoplasm. Okay, so protoplasm constitutes cytoplasm and the nucleus. Okay. So what is diffusion? Diffusion is a movement of any substance from higher concentration to the lower concentration. What about osmosis? It is the movement of water molecules from a higher concentration to the lower concentration. If you want to define it in terms of solute, a solute can be any substance. Okay, you can take an example of sugar. So if you want to define it in terms of solute, then it can be defined as the movement of water molecules from low solute concentration to the higher solute concentration, and through a semi-permeable membrane. This is a semi-permeable membrane, so that if this it allows only the selective substances to move from one cell to another cell. Okay, so it acts as a barrier. Diffusion is a random process, and whereas osmosis is a selective process. Diffusion is a passive process, it doesn't involve any kind of energy. Okay, whereas let's understand what is diffusion pressure. If you have understood diffusion, then we can also understand the diffusion pressure. So the potential of the water molecules to diffuse it from higher concentration to the lower concentration is called as a diffusion pressure. The pressure that drives or that controls the movement of the water molecules from higher concentration to the lower concentration, that is called as diffusion pressure. Okay. What is turgor pressure, friends? So it is an internal hydrostatic pressure exhibited due to osmosis. So when there is a low, when the water molecules are moving from the low solid concentration to the high solid concentration, or when the water molecules are moving from higher concentration to the lower concentration across a semi-permeable membrane, what happens is that due to high amount of water, there will be a cell will exhibit an high internal pressure which pushes the protoplasm towards the cell wall. That is called as a turgor pressure. Okay, what is osmotic potential? It is the minimum external pressure needed to prevent the flow of water into a solution by a semi-permeable membrane to prevent osmosis. Basically, you can say what osmotic pressure is. It is a pressure which is required to stop the osmosis process. It means it stops the movement of the water molecules from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Okay. Now it's now a very important topic, or you can say most confusing topic, that is diffusion pressure deficit. If you understand this, then it is very easy. No need to worry. So I have discussed about water potential in the previous lecture itself. So you can just see. I mean, what if you can recall, what is water potential? It is the difference in the free energy of the water molecule in pure water and in a solution. Okay. And you know, dPg means low. It is equivalent to dPg with negative sign. So I'll explain this later. So let us understand what is diffusion pressure deficit. It means that deficit means less diffusion pressure. Okay, deficit, there is some decrease, or you can say there is some deficiency, some decrease. Okay, there is less amount of the diffusion pressure. So difference between the diffusion pressure of any solution and its pure solvent. That is called as diffusion pressure deficit. In a solution, how much amount of the solvent molecules uh, is less, that is called as diffusion pressure deficit. Okay, so the direction of the water movement here is from lower diffusion pressure deficit to the higher diffusion pressure deficit. In case of diffusion pressure deficit, you should know that there will be less diffusion. Okay, so that is why it is deficit. Less diffusion means movement of water molecule from higher concentration to lower concentration is less. So it is almost reverse of diffusion. You can say, like, from lower diffusion pressure deficit to the higher diffusion pressure deficit. Because there is low concentration of the water, you know, water potential at water potential for pure water is always 0. Okay? And in DPD is represented with negative sign. Why? Because there is less amount of water. So DPD is measured in terms of atmospheric pressure or pascals, whereas water potential is measured in terms of bars or megapascals. So let us understand this formula. DPD is equals to OP minus TP. OP means osmotic pressure and TP means turgor pressure. These two terminologies I have discussed in this slide. You can see here, turgor pressure and the osmotic pressure. Turgor pressure, you can see in case of cells experiencing hypotonic solution. Okay? Whereas osmotic pressure you can see in case of hypertonic solutions. Okay? So DPD is always is equals to higher. DPD is the ability of the water transport, ability of the water molecules to absorb. That is called as diffusion pressure deficit. Okay, so we will try to understand how much amount of the water molecule is absorbed by the plants with the help of this diffusion pressure deficit. So it is always from higher DPD to the lower DPD. Higher DPD means there will be, see, DPD, if you have understood, then you will be clearly make out what the difference between the higher and lower DPD. So it is always measured in terms of higher DPD. The difference is from higher DPD to the lower DPD. Higher diffusion deficit means there is a high amount of water deficit. Okay, so OP minus TP. You know, in NEET, I've seen like questions they'll ask if a cell is having osmotic pressure of 10. Okay, if A cell, consider A cell is having the osmotic potential of 10 and turgor potential is 4. So you just minus this, 10 minus 4 is how much? 6. So we got the DPD value for A type cell is 6. And let's check with the B cell. We have one more cell, okay, and wherein OP is 10 and turgor pressure is 7. So how much value you got? You got value of 3. So by comparing these two values, DPD of A cell and DPD of B cell, if the value of the A cell is less than the value of the B cell, what happens is that this pressure, the diffusion pressure deficit acts upon, like, movement of the water molecules takes place from the A cell to the B cell. So from lower DPD to the higher DPD. This you should remember. So if the A cell is having the low dpt value, then obviously the water molecules will be moving from the low dpt value to the higher dpt value. Low dpt means obviously the water concentration will be more. So you know the process of diffusion, it will always the movement occurs from higher concentration to the lower concentration. So that's it. If you have understood this, you can solve many of the questions, neat questions. Let us see what are the differences between diffusion and osmosis process. I forgot to mention like who proposed osmosis and who proposed diffusion. So I'll try to include that in the next coming lectures, or if you can find by yourself, then it is well and good, because in some competitive exam they will directly ask the scientist's name who discovered this process. Okay, so that is very important. So let's see what are the differences between the diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is the movement of particles from high to low concentration, whereas osmosis is the movement of water from low to high solute concentration through semi-permeable membrane. Just remember this one, okay? From low solute to high solute. Most of the students get confused, and they'll mark wrong. So remember, if they are asking about water concentration, then it is same high water concentration to low water concentration. But when they are asking uh, regarding solute, then you should know that the water molecules is transported from low to high solute concentration. Okay. Substances, here it involves all the substances, whereas it involves only solvents like water. That is why it is a selective in process, whereas diffusion is it is a random process, so it allows all the substances to pass through. Here no membrane is needed, but here semi-permeable membrane it is there, and it acts as a barrier, and it allows only half of the substance. Semi means half, so it will allow only half of the substances to pass through, and it is very selective in nature. And what about concentration gradient? It moves down the concentration gradient, whereas it moves against a solute down water gradient. So diffusion is directly proportional to the concentration. So if the concentration is more, then the diffusion is also more. Whereas it is reverse of that. So it moves against the solute concentration. So if the solute concentration is more, then osmosis is less. Okay. So it moves around. It moves against the solute concentration. As I mentioned, it does not require any energy. No external energy is required, and the same is with the osmosis process. It will allow all types of molecules to pass through, but in case of osmosis, it will allow only the water and solvents to pass through. Speed, coming on to the speed, speed varies by molecule and medium. So it depends on the molecule and also the medium. So obviously the speed varies, whereas in case of osmosis, generally it is slower due to membrane selectivity. Here you can see here there will be rapid movement of the water. So it depends, like you can see variation in speed. It depends completely on the molecule and medium, whereas here generally the speed will be very low because of the membrane selectivity nature. Equilibrium, here uniform concentration is achieved, whereas here equal total potential on both the sides. So diffusion, movement of water molecules from higher concentration, movement of any substance from higher concentration to the lower concentration occurs until and unless the solution attains equilibrium. Okay, whereas Here it is equal water potential on both the sides. If the water potential is equal on both the sides, then this process is stopped, or it will attain the equilibrium state. Okay. And next is pressure. So diffusion is not dependent on the pressure, whereas osmosis is dependent on the osmotic pressure. Examples: perfume spreading sugar in tea. So if you mix sugar in tea, what happens? It diffuses uh, in tea. So that is called as diffusion, whereas it will diffuse. If you diffuse, like if you if you spray perfume in a room, what happens is that the whole room get smelled. So that indicates that diffusion has happened because of movement of substance from higher concentration to the lower concentration. So diffusion can occur in solid, liquid, and gaseous state, whereas osmosis mostly occurs in the solvents like water. Okay. And I already mentioned this, diffusion is concentration dependent, whereas osmosis is mainly dependent on the concentration of water. Here the direction can be in any direction, whereas here the direction is from higher to lower water potential. That's it, friends. I hope you have understood this lecture. Let us try to solve some of the MCQs. In this lecture, you have got so many MCQs to go through, and all those are very important. Just check all the MCQs that you are able to solve with notes. If you have any doubts, do let me know in the comment box section. Okay. This kind of questions are very frequently asked with respect to the solutions. Okay. Just try to solve and just check yourself like how many questions that you are able to answer. I hope you have understood the lecture. dPd is 0 when it is equal to the osmotic pressure. This you should remember. So if a cell is turgid, then what happens to the osmotic potential? So osmotic potential is basically with respect to the solute concentration. So what happens here is more amount of water means osmotic potential means solute concentration. So when you add more amount of concentration, or when you add more amount of water, solute concentration decreases. See, if the solute concentration increases, what happens? It will lower the water potential. So if there is low water potential, so here what happens for osmotic potentials? It generally decreases. Osmotic potential means osmotic pressure that which is required to stop the osmosis. You know, osmosis is the movement of water molecules from low solute to the high solute. But here the cell is turgid. cell is turgid means more amount of the water here. So what happens to the osmotic potential then? When it is decreased. Okay. And protonic solution has a low absolute concentration design with explained in the picture. Water moves from a region of low dPd to high dPd. Why? Because high dPd has greater water absorbing capacity. dPd itself, I have explained in the lecture how we define dPd is the ability to, it is a water absorbing capacity. Okay, so always it will move from water will move from low dPd to high dPd, and high dPd means it has greater water absorbing capacity. Okay. That's it, friends, for today's lecture. If you understood the lecture, please don't forget to like the button. Don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe to my channel. Please forward to your friends and tell them to subscribe to my channel. Okay. I'll meet you in the next lecture. Take care. Bye. Study well.